A little bit about me. I am the founder and CEO of a few different companies, Center for Intuitive Food Therapy, which is what we're here to talk about tonight. As a result of these teachings, I've rolled that into teaching people around the world literally how to do that with chefs in your own being with Nourish Your Soul retreats. And I run Nourish Your Soul Ayurveda, which is an import-export company. And of course, the Food Healing Oracle deck. Uh, I just don't laugh. I do a few things, and you're wondering why I'm so busy. Yes, I am. So, a little bit about me in a general sense. I do come from a very multi-generational family of healers and intuitives. Probably well before my great grandmother, although she's most notoriously known as being sort of the town psychic in Russia. And my all the female lineage all the way through has continued on that beautiful gift. Even my daughters are highly intuitives, and they have continued on in the food industry, which I absolutely love. At least my older daughter is. I have a bachelor's of science in food science, dietetics, and nutrition, and recently became a certified functional genomics coach and now a doctoral candidate for orthomolecular genomics. Big words. I'll explain what that is as we move along here. And I'm definitely have created a certified Oracle program here, but I'm a certified tarot and Oracle reader. Well before anything else, my first cards as a child was tarot cards. And I have many modalities, advanced theta healer, healing instructor, and I'm making a documentary film and many other things, on and on and on. And yes, most recently, managing director of You Women Network Southwest Florida, where some of you are members. But I've taken my life's work, which really has been with me primarily since a child, and moved it into the things that I will be teaching you today. These are these are many of my best-selling books, and I have more in the works, and I'll be sharing those this year and next. And I think I'll always be writing, but my first book was 20 years ago, Writing for Children. That was my first download, if you will. Finn's Giant Leap, and it's just kind of moved into more of the wellness territories. And these are just some of my offerings, and there's several others. What I wanted to share here with you tonight is that when I talk about food, I talk about it from a very personal point of view, and now something that I believe we all share as human beings and spiritual beings. And many of you know the story, and if you don't, you get to hear it here. But when I was a child, I had a lot of food hangups. A germaphobe. I was a hypochondriac. I really was very overly obsessed with food preservation. And I was always looking at expiration dates. I was always trying to smell a food. I was looking microscopically to see if there was mold. It was an absolute obsession that my mother could not figure out why I was so panicked around food ad infinitum. And that kind of went on, and that went on for most of my childhood and moving into my teens. But when I was a child, my mother was getting a reading, big spiritual surprise, but we were at a little Dhammapada, our metaphysical store. And when she was getting a reading, I was playing on the floor, and the reader looked down and said, "Your daughter. Did you know your daughter died of food poisoning in a prior lifetime?" And she says, "No, I did not have that idea." And she said, "I wouldn't be surprised if she did something in food," unbeknownst to her knowing, and I know there's a lot of psychics on this call, didn't know that I already had all these food obsessions. So what ended up happening as time went on, I did go into college, and entered a food science program because the science nerd in me needed to know the why, the how do things come together, what is happening with food, what happens, why are microwaves bad, why is this good. And it ended up being something I became very passionate about. So the spiritual part of me very much kind of took a back seat, and I went into science, Lainie, at that time, although I was very much, I think, born Sevante. And at that time, I'm in school as learning food science and the what and the why and how things are put together. I was also very blessed to be working for Hollywood's most famous vegetarian chef to the most famous stars. And I started to look at how that was kind of relating. So by day, I'm at school being all nerdy under a microscope. And then in the afternoons and evenings and weekends, I was, catering private dinners for Michael Jackson and Barbara Streisand and everybody under the sun. And I was starting to kind of see, some things that were happening with what all the high profile A-listers of Hollywood were doing and how they were doing it and why they were doing it and what they were choosing and what foods. And what most I was studying was the chef and how she worked with them, how she prepared food, she prayed over food, how she started to look at food as a very conscious, breathing entity, started to look at energy and frequency and vibration. And so when there was an argument or there was a discussion that was not of the highest vibration, it was moved out of the kitchen. And I just took note of it. College student, a long time ago. And so I've kind of been dancing in that world 35 years later. And I've always continued to be a foodie. And I've always done something in food. I produced many Hollywood events. Food was always at the center for. And in time, years later, I was taking some advanced food healing classes. And this was about less than 10 years ago. And I wanted to see kind of what was the latest because I had become a food scientist or, nutritionist many decades ago when the forefront, and I was just sharing this on this podcast today. I was sharing that back in the day that I was getting my degree, one of my big, final exams was to replace food, something innovative. And at that time, replacing something that was dairy or eggs was like a wow factor, mind you, 35 years ago. So I made a chocolate tofu mousse pie and I replaced it all with tofu, which was so at that time innovative. I know this is completely dating me and making it so archaic, but literally that at that time was like, wow. And they were like, "Ooh, she really can be innovative." I kind of laugh now, but in any case, decades later, I said, I want to see what's the latest in food healing. I was well into doing other things. In fact, at the time the concept started to brew about the food healing oracle deck, I was taking an advanced food healing class, but at the time I was really focused on producing meditations. My husband is a music producer and he had set me up on a little boutique record label and I was producing a series of best-selling meditation albums, Gulf Coast Meditations. Denise has been on many of them. And there was another colleague on there, and I just was striking up a conversation about our passions, and food came into the conversation. And the conversation also came into what would be a great platform to show spirit's connection to food. And it could have been a book, it could have been a movie, it could have been a documentary, it could have been many things. And we determined the best way to go about it would be an oracle deck. It was one of my passions. My entire life have been a tarot and oracle reader. And I thought, you know what? No one's really talked about food as a vehicle for spirit. So I said, let me get through this horrendously difficult advanced food healing course. It was really one of the hardest courses I've ever taken. They already promised me that 60% of the room was going to fail. So that didn't set up like an imaginary, like I already imagined, like, okay, I'm doomed. And there were 100 people. And yeah, the majority of the room failed. And then I came in, and I was pretty scared. It's a very difficult class. But nonetheless, I came in number 6 out of the class, only to find that the first 5 were repeaters. They had already failed it. And so they were already prepared and they were taking it the second. So essentially I came in first out of this group and I thought, okay, if I can get past this, I can channel some food. So what ended up happening is that I went ahead and said, I'm going to sit in meditation for some time, whatever time it takes. And I'm going to ask the universe, tell me about blueberries. Tell me about artichokes. Tell me about all these incredible foods. And I started to get visions. I started to get information. I started to take copious notes. Now, that's the spiritual side to these teachings, is that I did channel what is Blueberry saying to the world. Now, that is a personal and anyone, but it's my interpretation. But I didn't do it unwittingly without Harry Carey. It wasn't just like, this is my expression of the divine message. That is part of it. But because I know so much about food and the cosmology and the chemistry and what I'm about to show you on this presentation, I know that without question, there's several pieces to this understanding of why this deck has turned into something that is in 45 countries and growing. So I am going to now share the rest of my screen. But before I do that, does anyone have a comment or a question? Because I just said a lot in a short amount of time. Anything anyone wants to share, and you're welcome to put stuff in the chat, and Marianne can help grab those questions if you have them. Quiet on the set, anybody? Okay. You're amazing. Bless you. Okay, so thank you. So, all right. So now let me share, tell me more, as we say in our world of e-women. What I knew about food, in addition to what I was channeling, is that food was related to our elements. And so I started to look at what foods were related to earth, air, fire, and water. And I started to lay out that certain foods were red and spicy and had the fire element, and that there were cooling foods like cucumbers that were really have this watery element, or watercress, right? Or watermelon. I started to look at foods that carried the embodiment of water, which is also feminine. And I'm not going into the whole teaching. I'm just giving you a brief description that I studied real deeply our relationship as nature ourselves and food. And what I can tell you just real quickly without going into that, because that's more into the course, but if you think about us as earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, you would understand that we should be eating according to who we are. So let's just take that in order very quickly. Earth, right? Earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. So earth would be our bones, okay? Those are the bones that keep our structure. Air is our breath. Earth, air, fire. Fire is the chi. Fire is the energy that goes in our entire system. There's not a system in the body that doesn't burn calories, fire up our metabolism, move our entire system the way it needs to do. Any reproductive, cardiovascular, endocrine, every system requires energy. That is our fire. Earth, air, fire, water. Water is our blood. Water is the water in our body. We are fluid. And so spirit is our soul. So if we are earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, we should be eating according to nature, because we are nature. It's not just the oceans and the waters and the beaches. We are nature. And so I got pretty obsessed with, like, how can I explain that we should be eating according to our nature? If we're feeling hot and mad and enraged and fiery, we need food to cool us down. If we are feeling spaced out and an airhead and brain fog, we need to get grounded. And I started to study that. Okay. That's what a piece of what happened to the backstory of what the Food Healing Oracle deck's about. Okay. We good there? All right. Moving on. This is like the fast, quick version of this, but I want you to just see why this all works, because so many of you ask, and I thought now's the time to tell y'all. Okay, so moving on from there, we get to, let's see, I can't find my thing. There we go. The next thing is how foods, oh, this is the old one. Foods affect our chakra system. I have another picture, but maybe that's a reason that was supposed to be shown. So I go deep into, in fact, my next 7 books will be 7 little handbooks on feeding your chakras. But in the Food Healing Oracle decks and in our training programs, we go deep into this, because food is a huge messenger and a huge supporter for healing our chakra system. So that is a huge part to what we do. And so these are sort of the esoteric parts, but now I want to bring into the science of this. So you start to see this isn't just a spiritual educational tool over here. It's really a life manual. And this is where things really started to jive for me, that this deck was something more than just an oracle card. And it started with Dr. Masaru Emoto. And he is since passed, but he wrote the New York Times bestseller, The Hidden Messages of Water. And many of you probably have seen through the years that he was able to look under a microscope and determine that that water has a crystalline structure that looks very different according to the words that were put on the water. So if the bottle said love, you see this beautiful crystalline snowflake that's just gorgeous. And you see what happens if the words I hate you. So it was very clear to me that food, which is mostly made of water, there's a relationship here. So if water can be changed by a word, why can't food, which is primarily made of water, be changed by food? That's what you see on an oracle deck, and that's what I said. Oh, food on an oracle card. Okay, that makes sense. And I was already channeling what Spirit wanted me to say about the food, but now I'm bringing in real world science to the matter. But I didn't just stop there. I carried on with my studies because I'm obsessed with science. And I started to look at Dr. Bruce Lipton, who I've interviewed before on my show and was always a big fan. And many of you probably know him. He's so famous. And he did many books, but The Biology of Belief and The Wisdom of Yourselves were really what put him on the map, moving him from but from the biology world into the spiritual sector and space, because he started to talk about cells, that we have a consciousness. We can talk to ourselves. We can harmonize ourselves. We can love up ourselves. Our cells have the ability to listen and feel and integrate and change and shift. And that's why I always tell people who come to me for their DNA analysis, I say, these are tendencies. These aren't expectancies. These are things that can be shifted. And he played a big role. And my mind was like, well, what the food is made out of cells. Why don't we start to talk to our food and let our food talk to ourselves when we eat it and consume it? And if we put in a food that says joy, why don't we intend that our body's receiving joy frequencies? See? And so between that and Dr. Moto and Dr. Lipton, and where I was formulating this deck and the teachings that we now certify people in, there was something to what we're doing here. Okay. And stop me at any time because I can't see you. If you're like, I have a burning question. Then I took it a step further because I was really obsessed with Dr. David Hawkins, and he created the vibrational scale of consciousness. And I love this because it played right into where I was already feeling that words and frequency and energy and vibration all had something going on. And he created this frequency scale that starts with lower vibrational feelings of mad, shame, jealousy, rage, and gave them very low scales. And many people started to do that. Even Esther Hicks has their own scales of consciousness. Many people have them, but Dr. David Hawkins is the man. And I started to look like, wow, okay, if we raise our vibration, we change frequency and energy, and it goes up the scale. And I started to look at the words, and if we move, we start to look at things. And I started as a scientist thinking pH. Well, pH is very acidic, and that's what happens when we're mad. We get very acidic in our body, and we want to come back into balance, right? Balance pH, and then we want to move into an alkaline state. And it started to remind me of the chakras. So I took all these scientific platforms and started to formulate my own scientific theory. And that's what really became the Food Healing Oracle deck, which people now know is not anything but a real platform. See, that this is another person's point of view, but these are all different scales. So I also looked at Mother Nature, and I said, Mother Nature, talk to me, baby. And I realized that Mother Nature was providing her own clues. And these are the clues that really kind of got me paying attention, that it's been under our nose all the time. All these wonderful doctors have their stories, but the real story is that Mother Nature has been providing what we need all along to feed ourselves and to nourish ourselves and to keep ourselves healthy and to keep growing. And so I started to look at the foods that start matching the organs or the body parts that keep us functioning. And I can tell you over and over and over, and I know Carrie has been to some of these festivals, and Denise and Jody and many of you are here, that these people who come up and want us to pull cards will pull the card that's exactly the dis-ease or the issue that they're having well before they even pull the card. One of my favorite stories is when someone comes up to me and asks for me to pull a card, but she told me in advance I have heart disease. And what does she pull out of 124 cards? She pulls red bell peppers. So Mother Nature is saying, my wisdom is right here. It's God-given, and you just need to open up your eyes and awaken that there's more messages when you're buying food and you're consuming things on your plate. Okay. Few more things. Walnut, of course, is for brain health, and mushrooms for ears, and kidney beans. We were talking to that Dr. Yi today about kidney beans. And red cabbage, breasts. I'll never forget when I laid out all the cards on a table at one of my shows, and you could see that red cabbage, which is great for breast health, looks like a mammography. And a woman came up to me at one of our presentations, and she had all the cards laid out and they were faced up, and I had some in my hand. And she says, I only want to know what that red cabbage means. And actually the card word is betrayal, but she said, I just need to know about red cabbage. And before I can even get the words out, she says, and I'm a breast cancer survivor. And I just thought that was amazing, because the next thing I was going to talk about is how great this would be. And then she kind of took the words out of my mouth. And I've seen this now multiple thousands of times in all these years, that the food will present itself because our gut, trusting our gut, our intuition, our soul is there to tell you. And when we wake up to that consciousness, then we absolutely see that we are being guided all along. Our job here at Center for Intuitive Food Therapy is to provide you even the more teachings in the nourishment to just take it to the next level so you can teach others, because the whole world should be eating according to nature and elements and everything that I'm teaching you very quickly today. Any questions before I move on? Is anyone doing this yet? I hope so, because you should be like, wow, you didn't know? Because I just even think one of these things would blow me away. Even the food and the organs, but when you put all these pieces together, it's really next level. And I know some of you have known me a very long time, and you're like, I know you do this thing over here, and one day I'll get involved with it, but maybe the one time is now because you're here. All right, so let's continue on. I've shown you a few things. It's brilliant. Thanks, Sunshine. I love you. Okay, so let's move on to, we've got past Mother Nature. Love her. And now we're going to move on. What else do I have to show you? Oh, here we are. So I took all these wonderful things, and in 2019, after taking that horrendously difficult class, I wish I could show you the book. It's not around, but basically it was a 300-page food chemistry book that I had to master inside out and all around. I said, okay, I'm ready to do this. I channeled the food. I did it with a partner at the time. She's since retired. And we created something I think has been pretty phenomenal. And we started to tell people, are you ready to learn the deeper meanings of food? And we brought it out. And what ended up happening is, let me get back to screen. We did all this. It's like, okay, well, now how do we afford to produce this? Who do we do it to? And Spirit said, you're going to put this on Kickstarter, and you're going to do it in February of 2020. And you're not going to know this, but there's going to be this incredible pandemic that's going to scare the shit out of the entire planet. And you're going to be in the middle of trying to raise $20,000. And I thought, no, I'm not. And it was like, yes, I am. So here's what happened. I wonder why this is continuously zooming like that. So it was February. We all know what was happening during February. And the person that I thought was going to be running my social media campaign ended up telling me that, no, we were just building it. You have to go out and, tell this to people. And so what did I do? People were panicking during the pandemic. We all were. And so I thought, what do I do? I said, okay, I'm just going to pull a card each day and ask and see what the collective was feeling. So I pull the first card and like, oh, I know we're feeling we need to have protection. And I pulled the garlic card. And the next day, we need to get clear on, is this turning into a pandemic? And I did that. Pulled blueberry. And pretty much every single day, Denise probably remembers all this. I just started pulling cards. I didn't know what else to do. And I'm like trying to get people to like buy into this new concept, still a new concept 7 years later. And then people started to realize, like I pulled the immunity card and we in elderberry, and then action for tomatoes. And literally each day, I was making people feel like comfortable apparently because people were really resonating, and I've seen the numbers go up, and then people started to want to know about this, and we sold out 3 certification programs. And to make a long story short, we overfunded, and the healing food healing oracle deck was born. That was April of 2020 by the time we were said and done. And then got the everything ordered, and then in July the decks arrived on my birthday. It was so mystical. July 16th the decks arrived from China. I was like, and the rest is history. And then 2 years later, for 2 years, many people kept saying, we want more food, we want more food. And I thought to myself, are you kidding? Wow, we just did 20 foods. And we had people write in from all over the world. What about this? What about that? What about this food? And chefs were starting to write to us saying, we'd like to create intentional meals with what you're creating. And I thought that was amazing. And that was always been my dream, to work with chefs. So then I did that. And 2 years later, the second deck came out, and it was a real showstopper because it's very different than the first deck, even though it's still 60 foods. Now there's 124 foods. But what ended up happening is that food, 2 years into the pandemic, things had changed a lot. People were pivoting. You all know this. You were there. You were deciding on, should I stay? Should I go? Should I wear a mask? Should I not? There were so many things making decisions, but everything that was being done was a doing, male energy, divine masculine energy. And so I realized, and when I read for my first client, who I worked with the both decks, everything she wanted to be came from the first deck. Everything she needed to do to get there came from the second. I thought, oh my God, they're mated. So we have a divine masculine and a divine feminine deck. And to this day, and there's the third deck. I don't know what to call the third one because it's really a blend and it's the next level. It's a very high frequency deck. And so I've been writing that in my spare time. But I wanted to share that because people always say, wow, tell me about the decks. And do you need one or the other? Do you need one? You don't. They work independently. And again, they're mated. They work together as well. So I've continued to teach classes, not only with these teachings in the certification program that Denise and I do now, but I've also brought food into many other platforms. As I showed you in the beginning, I had a lot of best-selling books, and some of those classes now are available. And if you are a tarot person, we actually take you on a journey of the 22 major arcana and what foods are related to that. It's a fascinating class. And then in the book that I co-wrote with Angela Aurora Medway Smith, she and I talk about the quantum field and how you can put quantum codes on food to raise the frequency of food. And I very much show sacred geometry throughout the decks. And I do like to speak on that quite often, and food in the archangelic realm, and working with ascended masters. And of course, I mentioned elements in the chakra system. I know this is a lot of information, but these are where food wants to go here with you. And I want to have Center for Intuitive Food Therapy take you there, because this is what longevity is all about, understanding our greater understanding of ourselves and how we can work with food. So people say, how do you use the deck, and how do you anchor it in the energy of a reading? And so these are a couple examples. You can eat your way into creating an intentional meal. I did that during COVID. When I got COVID, I made a meal. I don't have that on slide here, but I made a very intentional smoothie that had healing and protection and balance and strength. And these were all foods that I put into the blender. But you can eat your way into creating an intentional meal. So what looks like a regular plate of food there is really a plate of action and healing and strength and magic. Those are words that are associated. So imagine you go to a dinner party and you start saying, "Did you know you're eating a plate of strength and healing and magic?" Well, people in our world do that now. And there is something to that. If you go back to the frequency of those words from some of the doctors I was showing you, you can make a big difference in what you put in words into your mind, into your body. Hence, that's what affirmations are, right? When we say, everything comes to me as easy as breathing, I am abundant, I am wealthy, I'm healthy, I'm loved, I am loved, protected, and favored. Whatever you say, those are intentions. Well, we create intentions by telling ourselves through food. And that is where our bodies start to heal, by using these words as healing tools while you're preparing your foods. So you can pull cards, you can make smoothies like truly kiwi freedom. This is a freedom smoothie. Peach, that's a positivity smoothie. And I'll be teaching that deeper on Sunday, April 12th here when we have our longevity retreat and our smoothie play shop. And I do smoothie play shops all over the world. Whenever someone says, "Can we do a smoothie play shop?" I say, "Yes, let's do one." And I encourage you to track your foods regardless, because you will notice patterns of what you're choosing and craving on who you associated with that day and how your mindset was or where your hormones were. Food will be a great storyteller to help match you where you need to go. I took those teachings from the Food Healing Oracle deck and turned them into a smoothie book. And so there's 38 recipes. These are just giving you an idea. So I have that smoothie book, and that's what I teach at the play shops. And you learn more about that when you start taking our courses, that people who don't want to make a whole meal, but they want to get the nutrition and the wisdom will take hold of one of our smoothie books that have the recipes that are based on the decks cards that are put together, and they get attuned affirmations. And there is this distinct difference when you are drinking something that you're making a tuned affirmation and putting that in your body than just drinking it. Just like there's a big difference on what you're intentionally eating. When you take our certification program, this is something I do a nutrition intensive too, but you do become a certified intuitive food therapist. It is a modality. And then for those of you who go on, we do teach you not only to learn the whole bigger world through our level 1, but then I go and teach the nutrition intensive, and I take the 60 cards and I go into the nuts, the bolts, everything you could possibly know. Many of you have taken it who are here, and you know it's like 175 pages of every amino acid, every vitamin A, B, C, D, mineral, and then I go into those 60 cards from the first deck that fight disease. And I mentioned several of the diseases. So it's pretty comprehensive. So I'm just sharing some of these things here so you get a sense really of what Center for Intuitive Food Therapy is all about. So we have a nutrition level 1, first deck. We have a nutrition level 2, the second deck. And you just can't get everything in our certification courses because there's so much to teach you. You'd be there for weeks and weeks on end, and it's really just a weekend. And we actually have a weekend coming up. And so it wasn't until we got to talking about, let's just say, cilantro and cilantro's relationship to, and by the way, cilantro's confusion in our deck, but when we started talking, I was training Denise, it was like I get into a whole story about cilantro and heavy metals and how we need to chelate them out because they create brain fog. And that's why cilantro is great for autism. And I started to go down this whole habit trail, and there's no time for that in a certification. So Denise is like, more wisdom of this. So that's where the nutrition intensives were born. And now those are very popular classes all in themselves. So another thing that we do at the Center for Intuitive Food Therapy. I'm almost done here, and then I can't wait to get your questions. Oh, so I am done, ready to take action. That's our tomatoes card. And now I think I have book a discovery call with me or Denise. So, all right, thoughts, feelings, and I'm going to say crazy outbursts, whatever you want to share on what I just shared, because I would love all of you to unmute and let's have a conversation for the next 15 minutes.
Lainie, I have a question about dates. I don't know if it's in the deck that I got, but what is dates in one of your thing?
Yes, and you know what? I almost just want to chuckle, Sunshine. Who would like to tell her what dates means for those of you who are here?
Trust.
Dates mean trust. In fact, I have the card right here.
Okay, so it's in your other deck then, right?
Yeah, it would be in the second deck. And wow, the Zoom thing is funny. I don't even know how to set that. But anyways, yeah, it's trust. And we teach you in these cards that there's never a wrong card. And there's something to be said. You can read a card five ways. It could be the
Sure.
word, it
Right.
could be the picture, it could be a
Words.
chakra, it could be an element. And there's always something to be said. This one happens to have a mala bead, and ironically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in numerology is trust. And so you start when you take our courses, start to see all the little hidden clues. It's like, where's Waldo? You start to look at when you play with the deck, it's one thing, but when you're certified and you know everything in it, I you get a real hands-on. So yes, and dates are very, very delicious and good. And so I teach you, Denise teaches you not only the food components, but also the spiritual components of a food and why it's chosen or why you're seeing it suddenly show up. In one of the other decks, we were teaching us, we had a certification program, and we just got done talking about throat chakra. And she said, she does not use her throat chakra very well. She said she's a little bit of she doesn't like to have confrontation. She doesn't like to communicate. She's had people walk all over her in business negotiations. She has really felt like throat chakra was very important for her. Then we go to break for lunch, and she just says, "Oh, and by the way, I've been craving radishes for 2 weeks. I can't stop eating radishes." What's radishes in your second deck? Radishes is communicate. I mean, I almost fell on the floor and just like passed out when she said that. I'm like, well, looks like that's up for you. And you'll see this every time when you start. And I know you're all going to like wherever you go from this moment on. I do know that you're going to wonder when you're craving something for dinner or why. You are going to, have an opportunity to look at our teachings and study them. And also, when you know ahead of time, if you're going through something, you need more joy, you need to, feel more connected, or you have some confusion, you need to get grounded, you can actually be proactive and make that meal to make that adjustment. But it would be very curious if you want to know what's happening subconsciously is when you go to the store, when you're buying food or whatever you're doing and you land on something, you could look it up. I'd love to hear from Denise, Carrie. Carrie, by the way, is our very first ever on the planet level 2 certified reader who took the course. Yeah. And what's interesting is I tell people from level 1 to level 2, level 1 is like you become an amazing reader. And then when you move to level 2, it's going from reader to healer. And you start to look at case studies where I say, Catherine's come in, she's feeling depressed. This is what's happened in her day. How are you going to resolve it with everything you've learned and everything I've taught you, esoterically, physically, mentally, spiritually, scientifically? And then you put it all together. And Carrie was the first person to kind of nail it. So kudos to her.
Yeah.
But I'd love
Oh,
Carrie or
thanks.
Denise, since you've taken my programs, and anything you want to share with the group, because they're probably at some point going to be, I know two people here taking our upcoming one. So go ahead, Carrie, and then Denise.
Yeah, the way I came into it, Lainey was a guest speaker actually in this group that I was in, and am an overachiever, so I had already pre-ordered my decks to have because I wanted to play along. And then that's all it took was one interaction, and I felt like every single card was specifically talking to me in a room full of like 10 women. So I signed up immediately for the certification. I went from being like one of the last people of the first one at the time to the first one done with the second one. And it's made me fall in love with food again. It helps me. My thing is play in the kitchen. I go in the kitchen. It's not a torture chamber anymore. You know, I'm not at the mercy of my fork, that kind of a thing. And just having a lot of fun in the kitchen. Sometimes I'll just pull cards to say I want a new recipe. I always have blueberries and beets in my house because it's something that I am always wanting to have grounding and clarity. And it's just a fun way I find myself talking even. My mom will say, "Hey, what's on my plate?"
Yeah.
So we have fun with that. And then going through some challenges in life, just pull a card for more in-depth feedback. So they're amazing. They're so much fun.
I want to say they're never wrong, but I shouldn't, but they're never wrong. They, I mean,
Sometimes the
yeah,
message comes
huh?
later. Like I'll pull the card sometimes and then I'll sit with them for a while. It won't always make sense. I always have people write things down, or I send like when I do the readings, I'll take a picture and send it to them because what may not resonate right now, but 2 days later when you're eating something, it's gonna cha-ching and it's gonna connect.
Denise, you could share, and Sunshine, I love the fact is that she's now using them with she and her husband. But Denise, did anything you want to add?
I absolutely love the decks, of course, because I've invested so much time and in learning because it is so impactful. Like Carrie mentioned, I had a lot of food trauma in my life, a lot of punishment around food. And so I was a utilitarian eater. I would eat for nutrition, and I'm famous in my house for saying, eat it, it's good for you. And it switches that up to mango, it's like joy. Um, and it is true. We always say you can't make this up because you'll pull a card and it'll just be like, oh my God. And the other thing I'm going to mention, because you didn't, but I mean, I sure just in the fact that I love that we have the mobile app that
Hmm.
because then I can be out, I can be at the grocery store and I can say, that's really calling to me. Let me look at it a minute. And I will take my time and I will shop deliberately now. But it also is funny when you were saying what you have in your kitchen. I always have arugula and tomatoes because certainty in action is where I want to be on my path at this point. And so it has enhanced all of my relationship with food, but it's also enhanced my own personal business relationship with myself and my business because everything I do surrounds frequency, and food is that original thing that the plants were the first thing on the planet for humans. Everything we make out of plants, like I love essential oils, but they're also originated from the plants. And so it's really the basis of our life here. Yeah.
And thank you for that. And Dr. Yi Song, who I was with today, was discussing just that about who were the original intuitives. And it was the plants and the animals. And we had this whole discussion. I can't wait for those podcasts to come out, but it was just what I was kind of wondering, like, where were we going to go? But we went to like an intuitive, very deep talk about that. And I love the fact that both Carrie and Denise are here because they went on to be having chapters in our high vibrational wellness, which ended up becoming a #1 bestseller in 12 countries. And they wrote such powerful chapters. Carrie got to speak a lot about playing with your food and food healing oracle deck. And Denise, your powerful chapter about healing generational wounds through food. And that whole lineage just really, I mean, people really resonated with both of those chapters. Marianne, you've been so patient. Let me answer anything you'd like to ask. Go ahead.
It's not for me, but Catherine has a question in the chat. And she wanted to know if this is mainly vegan or vegetarian.
The deck, thank you. That's a good question. And the deck and all the decks, and it came up again. She asked me today, am I going to do a deck on meat? The answer is no, I will not be doing a deck on meat. I was guided the first, the second, and the third, and every other deck, if I create it to stay plant-based. I really feel that the wisdom comes from Mother Nature. When I was showing you the foods that match the organs, they were all fruits and vegetables. And so I'm following my guidance with Mother Nature. And I believe that no matter what diet you on, and we know there's many of them, and I'm not saying one's better than the other. That came up in the questions today on the podcast, is that we all need fruits and vegetables and herbs and nuts and spices. They're here, they're medicinal. That's why herbs are created for wellness teas and Ayurvedic teas and everything else. What's been brought from plants is where I'm guided to only share, and every diet should have those components to get the necessary minerals. And I know, Sunshine, you have a huge background in nutrition as well. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, it doesn't matter if you eat protein or what your source is, there are some inherent things that your body will call for, and they need to be coming from some of these nature things.
Yes.
So I have another quick question for you.
Okay, and then Sunshine, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. If she wants to go, she can
Go
go.
ahead.
Okay. My question is, so when you're starting this, because I've already started a little, changed my diet drastically, because I can tell that when starting the class, everything in my life is going to change. I already know that. Do you suggest, or does anyone suggest any type of cleansing or anything to do beforehand?
That's a good question.
Because
Just a
our
lot of
bodies are
water.
obviously
For
going to go
myself,
through a
always,
change.
I would say have no expectations, to have a lot of water and just be open to receive.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. Sometimes when we have our Nourish Your Soul retreats, there's energies that start working depending on what is aligned for that retreat, but not necessarily for this class. I think you're okay. I think you're going to be very surprised. You think you're going in just for learning all this wisdom.
Mhm.
You actually realize that you're getting healings the whole weekend because you're practicing with each other. You're picking readings. I pick on you to, give you a reading. Like, it's very transformational from the minute you get there, probably from beforehand when I email or Denise emails out the materials, then it's kind of on, but no dietary change. But you should be listening to your gut. And if you start to see foods,
And
write it down and start your food journal. Like, wow, like I said, that woman who was taking the course was craving radishes. Start noticing in the week before your course what starts showing up for you. That's what I'll say. But don't, feel like you got to make some drastic changes, but just keep note of it. Okay. Good questions, though. Sunshine, did you want to say anything? I know we're almost there, everyone.
Well, well, this is just fantastic, Lainie. I mean, I love your intuition with all of this, and and I love, Denise, what you're saying about frequency, because I love frequency so much. And many, many years ago, I took a psychic class about how to read the energy of plants and see their auras, and I was completely blown away because I'm a flower girl and all about vegetation and all that. And so that was so exciting to me because then I get to immediately connect my frequency, my energy. When I did that, the plant would light up. And so that was fun. And I love that you brought up the water too, because many, many years ago, one of my Native American women was teaching us all about the frequency of water, just like I forget his name again, Emoto. Anyway, and how you can program. When you blow your breath into the water before you drink it, it actually will taste different because the frequency of it is shifting. And if you put the words in, just like he's done that study on there, and what you want, just intending what you want the water to do for your body, to hydrate, to bring cleansing, clearing, it does that. So I do that before I drink my water.
I love it. Well, that's kind of what we do when we're making the smoothies is that we put everything together and then we create the recipe, the affirmation, the intention, say it, and then drink it. And by the
Love
way,
that.
just to wrap up, for some of you who are here in Florida who or feel like you are have the spirit of spontaneity in you, April 9th through 12th coming up here, right, in a week or two, we will be having our longevity retreat. And it's an extraordinary treat because we have the opportunity to spend 4 mini days together, Thursday through Sunday. Some of you are coming, and some of you have been there before. And we go through a lot of food healing discussions, but we talk a lot about longevity and how some of the zones in the world, the blue zones, are doing it. And it's a lot more than just eating, of how these centenarians in the world are moving along in their day and what are they doing and what is their terrain and what is their mindset. So we'll be doing that with delicious food that we'll be having blessed from Chef Autumn, who has taken a lot of has taken all my courses. And not only that, she works with special dietary challenges and she pulls cards before she prepares meals for her private chef clients. She really actively uses the deck. And then that Sunday, April 12th, we have a 1 day smoothie play shop where we get to play. It's the place you get to play with your food. And we will be having that wonderful day where we will be breaking you into groups and having fun and making intentional recipes and really getting into the nitty gritty of how to heal your body with smoothies. So that's just a 1 day play shop. Some of the retreat people will stay and others will just come for the day. So that's this coming April 9th through 12th. And if you can't come, maybe you know someone who does and have them see me. So if you have come to this, I'll send a follow-up email both on our upcoming certification courses if you are interested in them, as well as that. And we're at 8:01. So any like
Just share.
last two questions, Corey?
Can I? So I just want to share. I've not taken any of the courses yet, but I play with the cards, and I've been fortunate enough to be on some of the retreats, Nourish Your Soul. So before this Zoom, and after I already ate my meal, I was like, I'm going to just pull because I love playing with the cards because it has just changed it the intention of food and what I'm doing and how I'm doing things and everything. It's just so many clicks, aha moments. So after I ate my dinner, but before this, I figured, well, let me just pull some cards. So I did the four, emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual. And the four cards that I pulled were what I ate for dinner. I mean, you cannot make this up.
What for?
And so emotional was beats for grounding, which I really need right now. And the mental was strength. So I've got like some family stuff happening, and that's really important. My physical was tomato. So, that makes sense. I got to take action to do that. And then my spiritual were grapes, which is the attitude. So I was like, you know what? I was like, thank you. And it should they you can't make this up. And it just it brings more light to how I'm eating and what I'm eating and when I like it was shared. And I just want to say one other thing. When I was on the Nourish Your Soul retreat in Costa Rica, and I was blown away. I guess we all had a card, and I don't know how many were on this retreat, at least 20, maybe. And then Lainey says, put all your cards out. And then she just put Carrie on the spot and said, do the reading. And she read and tied in every card and the intention behind the food on how it applied so perfectly to
It's almost 30 people, and she just
it was,
blew it
oh
It
up.
was
my,
almost like an out of body feeling.
it was like, I was
It
like,
was
what
crazy.
the? But it was spot on. It was so spot on because there were so many, just beautiful experiences and openings that were happening during that. I felt like I was there a year, but I know I wasn't. But that's just how impactful these cards are. And I'm only playing with them.
We
So
got to get
thank
you.
you.
We need to get
Oh, I know.
you.
Mhm.
Yeah. So thank you for being here. And you all know how to reach me. And please see me. And I will refer you to Denise if you are interested. I'll send an email out when our upcoming courses are. At some point, we will be having a self-paced course where you can do this at your own opportunity, but that's a little bit in the distance. Right now, we're forming our online groups, and they're mostly, sometimes they're Friday, Saturdays, so you can rest on Sundays. Sometimes they're Saturday, Sundays, but we are forming a few dates for the rest of this year, and we'll be in touch with you. I'm happy to provide a discount for you for coming and learning here. And I'm going to have this recording available. It'll be up on our YouTube channel. And if there are people that you know that have a stomach, that's funny. I only laugh at that because yesterday at the SBI, we said, who is your power partner or your perfect power partner? And Chef Autumn goes, anyone who has a stomach. We all started laughing, but it was true. Thanks, Sunshine. And so that we will be, I don't even know where I was going. I just like boop, went out. But anyways, I thank you for being here. I'm going to send you some follow-up information. And if you feel called, we have decks available. I'm very proud to say that I'm in the middle of negotiating a final deal to get the decks on Temu and Shine with the new distributor, and the decks are being rebranded. And so there's a lot happening in our world of Center for Intuitive Food Therapy. So whatever your interest is, I thank you. Please reach out. I'll reach out as well to you. And if you want to get a copy of the deck 1, deck 2, any of our books, I have any of those things, and I will make them all available to you. So see you at the retreat. Who all's coming next week, and wherever else I see you, I thank you. I bless you, and I
Thank
wish you a good
you.
rest of your
Thank
night.
you.
All right,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.